Folks, welcome back. I have your latest home prices and insights for the City of Toronto for week ending October 19th, 2022. We are seeing more and more investor type homes on the market for sale. How do we know, or what do I mean by investor type homes? Well, when we're looking at these homes with our buyer clients, we're seeing that they're either vacant or they're tenanted. And then we do some research and we can see that these homes were purchased 1 or 2 years ago and were rented right away. So the purchaser, the owner of the home, never actually lived in there, and now they're up for sale. I mean, this is something that in any market at any time always happens. We're just seeing more of it right now. I mean, if we think about when we go back a little bit, it wasn't too long ago that interest rates were phenomenal. Equity in properties were going up, and a lot of these people, a lot of these investors that have their one home that's built up a ton of equity decided it kind of makes sense to buy a second home, and that's what they did, and they rented it out, and it never really made sense on a cash flow basis, because in most cases, unless they're putting a huge down payment, they were cash flow negative. But that was okay for a lot of investors. They thought, this makes sense because it's the equity that they were after. They figured if prices go up 5–10% a year, I'm good, and I'm okay chipping in every single week, adding to the rent to support the carrying costs of the second or third property that I bought. Well, things have changed. Interest rates are through the roof now, or much higher than they've been in a long time, and so carrying that property has become way more expensive. It's becoming more of a burden for people. Carrying their own property that maybe they've taken loans out against to purchase a second property, carrying that expense is becoming more of a burden. Day-to-day living has become more and more expensive. So these people are choosing to get out of that deal. And the whole reason that they purchased was an investment into future equity, and they're seeing that equity shrink, not grow. So they're choosing to put their homes on the market for sale. It's just, I guess, a sign of the times. We're seeing more and more of that. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. Let's get into the numbers. If you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video, in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you. This way, I'll know ahead of time and I'll make sure my schedule's organized so we can talk about whatever's on your mind. Let's get into the numbers. I have here for the City of Toronto broken down by week for a whole year, up to and including week ending October 19th. This is just for detached properties. Sales, 136 detached properties were sold in the City of Toronto. It's just the City of Toronto. There's no suburbs in here. There's no Durham region or York at the north or Mississauga or Brampton. Just the City of Toronto. 136 detached properties were sold. 21 of those were at $2 million or more, and average sold price bumped up a little bit from the previous week to, I say a little bit, but bumped up almost $80,000. $1,542,000. $1,542,000 is 17% lower than last year's average sold price. We've been below last year's average sold price for a while now. Median price is 12% lower than last year's median price. Now the dotted line here, that's a 4-week moving average, and it just helps to kind of see the trends a little bit more clear than when we have the ups and downs when we use the regular average sold price numbers or the regular median numbers. And you can see, it's going up, it's going down, but there hasn't been a lot of drastic changes in prices in the last few months. Let's look at sales. Of the 136 that sold, 30% sold at list price or more. So less than a third. That's a big change from what we were doing a year ago. A year ago, 70% sold at list price or more. And let's just focus on, for a minute now, last year's sales. Those are the blue graphs here. If we look at the summer last year and then we see the fall numbers, there's a big change between summer to the fall market. That was last year. That's more of a normal thing to happen. This year, if we look at the orange, that's this year's numbers, and these are the sales figures. We see the summer sales, and although there's a bit of a bump for the fall sales figures here, it's really not that much. And you really kind of got to look at it to say, yeah, it's a little bit more, but not much. So we didn't see the big jump in sales that we were expecting that would normally be something that we see in the fall. Oh, let me just go back for a second. Year-to-date sales, 31% fewer sales this year versus last year, year-to-date. Listings, 9% fewer listings, 318 detached properties were listed for week ending October 19th. And we can see the big change between summer listings and fall listings. There's a big difference. We saw a bump in listings this year. Months of inventory came down a little bit. We have 2.2 months of inventory. 19 is the average days on market. That's all of Toronto. If we break it down a bit between west, central, and east, we can see kind of what's happening more regionally located here. So let's start off with West Toronto. 44 detached properties were sold. 3 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price, basically the same, came down just by a little bit over the previous week by $1,000. And these are rounded numbers, so maybe it's a little bit less than that. $1,313,000 is the average sold price in West Toronto. $1,313,000 is 11% lower than last year's average sold price. The median price of $1,215,000 is 4% lower than last year's median price. Again, just for West Toronto. And months of inventory in West Toronto is sitting at 2.7, came down a little bit from the previous week. Average days on market for West Toronto is 25. Here's Central Toronto. Now, Central Toronto has the lion's share of the luxury properties. 33 detached properties were sold. 18 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price went way up to $2,470,000. $2,470,000 is 10% lower than last year's median price. Than last year's average sold price. Median price, $2,238,000, is actually 6% higher than last year's median price. And you can see the 4-week moving average to kind of figure out a trend. Median price seems to be going up a bit more at a stronger pace than what the average sold price is doing, which kind of looks like, if you look over the last 4 to 6 weeks, hasn't really changed that much. Months of inventory for Central Toronto is sitting at 3.7, and the average days on market is 21. Here's East Toronto. 59 detached properties were sold. 3 of those were at $2 million or more. But look at average sold price. For several weeks now, it's headed in one direction. Average sold price is $1,194,000, which is 17% lower than last year's average sold price. Median price is also 17% lower than last year's median price. But median price is just like average sold price. Median price is going down even more. Median price now is sitting at $1,035,000 for East Toronto. And East Toronto is basically East York, Beaches, Scarborough. That's East Toronto. Months of inventory is sitting at 1.1. It's unchanged from the previous week. The other areas has come down a bit. It's unchanged. 1.1 is extremely low. Average days on market is 14. That's for East Toronto. Here's a quick summary. You know, when we look at volume and activity and intensity and, you know, how many people are buying at list price or more and percentages and all that. Well, East Toronto normally has the lowest average prices, the lowest median price. It also has the highest activity, highest percentage of people buying at list price or more. So there's more competition in East Toronto. 39% of the properties sold in East Toronto sold at list price or more. And as a result, the lowest days on market and the lowest months of inventory. Here's a summary of semis. 49 semi-detached properties were sold. 10 of those were at $1.5 million or more. Average sold price has come down a little bit. It's now sitting at $1,193,000, which is 12% lower than last year's average sold price. Median price of $1,052,000 is 16% lower than last year's median price. Months of inventory came down, sitting at 1.3 months of inventory, and 15 is the average days on market. 37% of the semis that sold at list price or more, so a little bit more than a third. Townhouses, only 16 townhouses were sold across the city of Toronto. These are freehold townhouses. 4 of those were at $1.5 million or more. Those 4 plus other townhouses that were sold were in the higher price bracket of townhouses. Average sold price has been climbing. It's now sitting at $1,415,000, which is 1.2% higher than last year's average sold price, and median price is 19% higher than last year's median price. Months of inventory came down, sitting at 1.5 for townhouses. Here's condos. Sales went up quite a bit, actually. 185 condos were sold across the city of Toronto. 21 of those were at $1 million or more. Average sold price bumped up a bit, now at $756,000. $756,000 versus last year's $753,000. Because I'm rounding these percentages, it shows a 0% change in price, but actually it is a bit higher. It is 0.4% higher than last year's average sold price. Median price, virtually unchanged. It's up 0.1% versus last year's median price. Median price now is sitting at $659. If we look at the 4-week moving average for median price, it's tougher to see a more straight line than what you're seeing there on the 4-week moving average for median price. Sales, look at sales here. 33% fewer condo sales this year versus last year. 23% of those sales sold at list price or more, where last year 50% sold at list price or more. You can see the huge difference though compared to, last year when we look at the sales, they were so much higher than where we are today. Listings, 560 condos were listed just for week ending October 19th. And as far as year to date, we have 9% fewer condo listings this year versus last year. Months of inventory came down a bit. It's now sitting at 3.3 months of inventory. That's for condos, and 25 is the average days on market. Here's a summary of all the months of inventory. Except for East Toronto, where it stayed the same, months of inventory has basically come down across the board here, making the market a little bit tighter. When the market is tight, there's more competition, it's harder for prices to actually come down just because more people, well, I wouldn't even say that there's necessarily more buyers. It's just the relationship between buyers and the amount of properties available for sale, supply and demand. Even if there's fewer buyers, if there's fewer listings, it's still competitive. And this is why we're seeing prices really not dropping right now. We're not seeing a huge influx of listings. We're not seeing a huge drop in buyers in relation to the listings. And prices have been, although they've come down quite a bit, they've kind of, for now, leveled off. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.